Spokesperson Paul Kohler.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As other speakers have noted, buses are the most used form of public transport in England, and in much of the country, the only option available. Yet outside of London, bus use is in sharp decline, with more than 1 billion fewer passenger journeys in 2023 than 2015. Not due to insufficient demand, but as a result of the Conservative policy of deregulation, put profit before people, allowing private operators to cream off the valuable routes with scant regard for the needs of the wider community, resulting in increased fares and reduced or completely abandoned services for many, unless, of course, the local authority, starved of access to the profitable routes, met the costs of the unprofitable ones. In rural areas, the story is often one of total disconnection, with communities cut off and people unable to get to work or hospital appointments, visit friends or relations. We need people to have access to bus routes, or otherwise they're just left with expensive and environmentally much more damaging private transport. Put simply, a poor or non-existent bus service isn't just an inconvenience, it's a barrier to opportunity, a brake on economic growth, an obstacle to achieving net zero. Given this decline in local bus services under the Conservatives, my party and I warmly welcome the government's renewed focus on this issue. And so may I state at the outset, this bill includes measures that are long overdue and which my party will support. So it needs to be stated from the off that the bill does not go far enough, falling short of delivering the comprehensive transformative change our bus network so desperately needs. And thus, can I urge the Minister, even at this late hour, to be even more ambitious. If I may begin by outlining those measures introduced under this bill that my party supports. Local government, not Whitehall, knows what is best for its area. That's why my party has long championed localism, which is all about providing communities with the necessary tools to realise their potential. The bill's provisions to improve, streamline and extend franchising rights to all local transport authorities is consequently long overdue and supported on these benches. Furthermore, the placing of socially necessary services on a statutory footing is a beneficial change to the enhanced partnership model, as it ensures local authorities assess the impact of service changes and consider alternatives. The bill also rightly lifts the outdated, ideologically driven ban on municipally owned bus companies, empowering local authorities who wish to use it rather than infantilising them. So taken as a whole, these measures create an improved set of options from which local authorities can choose the approach that works best for them. As the Secretary of State noted, it's important to realise it is not and must not become a one-size-fits-all approach. Not every local authority will wish to pursue franchising, establish a bus company or abandoning the partnership model. What works for Greater Manchester or London may not work for Oxfordshire or Cornwall. It must be up to local leaders and ultimately local communities to decide what works best for them. I welcome the fact the government is not mandating a certain approach. However, therein lies the challenge. Empowering local authorities in law is one thing, enabling them in practice is quite another. Whilst this bill hands councils a set of keys to a new bus network, it doesn't ensure there's fuel in the tank. Franchising is complex, resource-intensive, and unfamiliar to the vast majority of local authorities. It requires legal expertise, commercial understanding, operational planning, and above all, funding. The Department for Transport itself has acknowledged these difficulties, yet this legislation provides little to help overcome them. The government's laudable desire to increase its own capacity to advise councils is welcome, but I'm not convinced they are doing enough. The recently established Bus Centre of Excellence, which you will no doubt hear much about during the passage of this bill, was a positive development. But does it really have the necessary capacity and resources to provide meaningful support to all those who might need it? If we are to see franchising become a viable option beyond a handful of combined authorities, we must take bolder steps to offer councils without either the expertise or the finance more than just a helpline or homilies on best practice. Every honourable member in this House knows how overstretched the local authorities are. Well, with the exception of our colleagues from Reform, of course, sadly absent from today's debate, no doubt too busy frantically searching for the untapped resources and savings they confidently promise they discover in their new fiefdoms. As for the rest of us, We know most local authorities lack the finances, expertise and bandwidth to use the tools the bill has provided, with the result that only those local authorities who already have the capacity to do so will use them, exacerbating regional disparities, not reducing them. Whilst, Madam Deputy Speaker, even if we overcome such problems, that will not remove the continuing role of central government in securing access and affordability. That is why the government's reckless decision to raise the national bus fare cap from £2 to £3 cast a dark shadow over this bill. The original 2 cap was not only popular, it was effective. It reduced costs for passengers and helped bring people back onto the bus network. This is precisely the kind of policy which we need more, not less. Increasing fares by £1 per trip may not sound prohibitive, but for those on low incomes or families making multiple journeys, this change represents a significant cost increase. Adding £20 to the costs of a weekly commute to anyone who has to take 2 buses to work, whilst only saving the government £150 million. And let us be clear, this increase is regressive. It will hit the poorest hardest, particularly at a time of the cost of living crisis. Surely the government should commit to preserving affordability, not undermining it, as raising fares in the absence of service improvements risks entrenching decline, not reversing it. Even more worryingly, rumours are now doing the rounds that the fare cap may be removed altogether. That would be a catastrophic mistake. We must not allow the progress of recent years to unravel in a Treasury-pleasing piece of virtue signalling that will only save the Exchequer a further £150 million. A thriving, affordable bus network is not a luxury, but an essential public service. This bill must ensure that is the case. Nowhere is that more true than our rural areas. As we've seen for years, the current unregulated bus market is failing small villages and remote hamlets, serving them neither efficiently nor sufficiently. The bill as it currently stands provides nothing specific for rural areas. No dedicated rural funding stream and no obligation to maintain coverage. It's clear that if we are to be ambitious and achieve the economic growth rural areas need, we must ensure local authorities have the ambition and the financial means to improve public transport. This bill is missing an opportunity and failing to do so. I've heard, and no doubt the House will hear from colleagues, as they already have done, from residents across the country, from rural areas such as Norfolk, Somerset and Hampshire, no buses, or a bus a day, if you're lucky, has sadly become the norm in many villages. This is not just inconvenient, it's holding back our rural economies and stifling growth. I fear the measures in the bill will not be sufficient to reverse that decline. Lastly, I want to address accessibility. This is something on which my Liberal Democrat colleagues in the other place and other noble lords have made good progress and have secured a number of improvements. As originally drafted, the bill included positive provision for the mandatory training of staff, both in supporting disabled passengers and in tackling on-board antisocial behaviour. These are measures we support. The Liberal Democrats believe true accessibility means more than awareness training. It means fully accessible vehicles, clear signage and announcements, accessible journey planning tools, and critically, accessible infrastructure, from the bus stops to the ticket machines. Madam Deputy Speaker, in summing up, let me conclude where I began. There are many aspects of the bill which my party and I welcome. After years of Tory neglect, provisions to give local authorities more control and input into their local bus networks are long overdue and clearly sensible. But we cannot give local authorities tantalising new powers without the practical means of utilising them. That requires sustained investment and reform of the funding models. I acknowledge the government has promised to include longer-term funding settlements in the spring spending review. However, noises off suggest that it is unlikely to address the shortfall in local government funding. This bill provides the necessary tools, but to build something effective with them, councils need not just legislation, but the finance, expertise and flexibility required to give effect to their vision and address their communities' needs. So I urge the Secretary of State to please go back to the Treasury and ask for more, because financing a viable bus network is key to growing our economy. Thank you.